So does this tap into, I hear a lot about like Brene Brown talks about shame and other people talk about guilt or other, like, are these things connected? Are they different? How do things like the nervous system and some of these struggles relate to things like shame?
Yeah, I guess I would say the nervous system has a whole lot to do with shame. And it's really beautiful how many providers are out there talking about these things. I think everybody has their own language for some of this stuff. And maybe the nervous system is something that we all have in common. So that's part of I guess, the beauty that I find in speaking the language of the nervous system. Even in our group of providers at Big Calm, we all kind of come from some different backgrounds. Our trainings are unique in terms of healing modalities and those things. And there's places where our language naturally syncs up. And then there's places where we're maybe talking about really similar concepts, but just from slightly different language bases or slightly different conceptualizations. So um, I would tend to say, that shame is just one state. It's just a state that our systems can find itself in. Oftentimes, if we're um, fearful that there's something inherently bad about us that's going to have us ostracized from community in some kind of way. And so it's that difference that Brene Brown talks about in terms of what is the difference between guilt and shame, and that whole idea that guilt is it essentially tells me that I've done something, I don't know if I like the word bad, but not particularly helpful to me, versus shame would tell me that I am bad, that I'm kind of inherently flawed. There's something wrong with me, and maybe uniquely wrong with me. And so it starts to create that sense of like maybe not being worthy of connection and some of those things. And so the way the nervous system is processing different events is going to have a lot to do with what states we find ourselves in.
And so the nervous system, to pick up on that, is kind of at the core of this, you're saying, and there's different ways to kind of tap into the nervous system, and then different ways that issues with like imbalance play out between the nervous system and the real world. And one of those could be shame, but it could have different flavors, right? It could be different things for different people.
Absolutely. And so, there's three key parts of the nervous system. We base a lot of our conversation of the nervous system at Big Calm kind of on the polyvagal theory. And so, according to that theory, there's again three layers of the nervous system. And so, in the um, first part of the nervous system that kind of evolved across human history, there's this part of the nervous system that when I'm in danger, it's going to go into a kind of a collapse state. It's gonna play dead essentially. And so our systems can find if our nervous system, so I'm gonna go back to that word earlier of neuroception. If it neuroceps, or it kind of unconsciously detects some form of threat, it's possible that our nervous system will go into a pattern that's more of a collapsed energy in order to try to take care of us. Um, and then there's the sympathetic part of the nervous system. This is the fight or flight part of the nervous system, and probably one that most of us are more familiar with. And so that's kind of the idea that if something is threatening to me, I'm going to find myself having, maybe a fight, a flight, a freeze, or maybe a less known response would be called a fawn response. And the fawn response is when I am in the face of threat, and maybe in like a predator type scenario, I'm going to start trying to appease somebody. I'm going to just try to go along to get along. And so if I'm in that sympathetic part of my nervous system, and I'm feeling threatened in some way, I'm going to go into a pattern that involves those types of energies. Which pattern is going to be maybe more so unique to each individual. And so some people have a little bit stronger tendencies towards a fight response. Some people have a little bit stronger tendencies toward a flight response. We all have a little bit of everything. So there's going to be variation, but definitely you can see some people moving more strongly into certain patterning. Um, And then there's the ventral system, which is really kind of our goal, is to try to help bring people into ventral states, which are the safe and connected states in our nervous system. And so when I know at the level of my nervous system that I'm safe, then I become open to connecting with people in the world around me, and even myself. So if I'm in danger, I'm not connecting deeply to some inner knowing that exists within myself.